but I'm not sure if I'm actually recording or not. And I'm not quite sure about how to stop if I am recording. So if it says starting, I assume that right now, okay, I've started. Okay, so this is something new for me. I'm going to record this live. It's an answer. I'm actually going to upload it to LinkedIn, but I'm not allowed to connect up to LinkedIn live at the moment. I've asked for permission. So this is an answer to a question that I was made on LinkedIn by a car sharing platform, and they asked me what I thought the tendencies would be with regards to car sharing in the future. So I've written down a few sort of mega trends that I think will modify people's behaviour with regard to car sharing, and then some examples of how specifically that might change things. The notes are written in Spanish, and I'm obviously doing this in English, so if I get a little bit confused, excuse me. So the first thing is a fear of crowds. The second one is an increased interest in sustainability and everything that's sustainable. A third one is remote working at businesses. The fourth one is an increased interest in wellness generally. And the fifth one is more sort of nationalisation. When I say nationalisation, sorry, that's not the word I meant. I mean more sort of interest in the national economy. So specifically with this respect, in terms of national tourism rather than international tourism. So the first point in terms of fear of groups, people have just connected. So the first thing in terms of fear of groups would be carpooling versus public transport. So if obviously this is for a car, specifically a question for a car sharing company, but if the car sharing company were able to promote carpooling at the same time as car sharing, then sharing a space with fewer people would presumably be of more interest to the end consumers than taking public transport. There is a company that I know that actually has a system that specifically does this, which is called a Helia Centre. I know it well because I'm a shareholder. But they allow car sharing companies to use carpooling. The next one, at the same time as there might be more interest in carpooling for that reason, there's obviously going to be a fear of confined spaces and being with other people that are in confined spaces, and a fear of touching things that other people have been touching, breathing their air even in the instance of a car sharing system. The only way I can see of resolving that is having in place control measures. Some ideas that I've had, obviously this is done sort of on the fly, but some ideas that I've had of that is perhaps you could give for free masks and gloves when somebody gets into the car. There's actually a company that I know that has a solution that could help with that. They have sort of mini vending machines specifically for taxis and cars, but theoretically they could do some car sharing, and they provide you a code that allows you to open one of the little boxes in the vending machine and take this stuff out. So if you were to give little packs of masks and gloves and maybe alcohol cleanser, then that would obviously increase people's trust in the service, because they know that other people theoretically would use the same. Obviously, another one is just basically a general control of users. This might be in terms of who's actually using the service. If we start using in Europe systems like they've been using in China in South Korea and Singapore with a control of who has the disease and who doesn't, or who's been infectious and who hasn't, then obviously you could link that information into the car sharing system and basically block anybody that hasn't got a green or a yellow badge, as it were. You block all the reds. Obviously, another one is daily cleaning, and everything that can be done to show people that daily cleanings taking place, and you're obviously doing everything in your powers to prevent infection is obviously good. Another one, if people are worried about groups, there's going to be more use of scooters and bicycles compared to cars or motorbikes, particularly car sharing, motorbike sharing, or indeed public transport. I don't personally like the idea of putting on a helmet right now that somebody else has put on. It's one thing maybe going into a car, it's another thing putting on the helmet that they put on. Well, if people are doing motorbike sharing systems, well, you could perhaps promote the fact of people wearing their own helmets. You could even perhaps do a deal with a helmet manufacturer to offer them pay-as-you-go helmets, or rented helmets, or discounted helmets, or whatever it be. Another one is obviously you could do routes related to using transport systems that foment social distancing. You could have mobility as a service routes obviously already exist, but you could add an additional value to those that have greater social distancing. Again, I know a company that's specifically doing this, IO Mob. And that's one of the values that they have in place. So obviously a scooter would be preferable to a motorbike, which would, if you're using the motorbike, the motor sharing's helmet, walking would be preferable to everything else. Bicycle would obviously also be preferable. So with regards to sustainability, obviously there's going to be more interest in using electrical vehicles, which is great for the car sharing companies because they're almost all electrical vehicles. But at the same time, you've got problems in that there's loads of cars that have been manufactured that haven't been able to be sold. So there's going to be big discounts on vehicles when we come out of this. And potentially the car manufacturers are already pushing governments to allow them more time to bring in electric vehicles and have 100% of the new vehicles sold being electric, and they were already pushing for more time. Well, that's only gonna be pushed even further, one assumes. At the same time, it's possible that it accelerates the whole process. Probably unlikely because obviously there's not the manufacturing capability right now to develop all the electric cars that would need to be sold if all cars were electric. Look at the problems that Tesla have had. Then in terms of remote working, obviously there's going to be less travel to and from work. But at the same time, there's probably going to be rotation of timetables. They're talking about bringing in even 24-hour works offices 7 days a week, so that they can rotate staff in the offices and maintain sort of 2 meter distances. Well, that for car sharing companies, particularly if they're doing carpooling, increases perhaps the potential to reach agreements with companies whereby somebody takes the vehicle, picks it up, car sharing, takes it to the workspace, and then somebody that's leaving at that time, because they're doing these rotating timetables, picks up the same car from the workspace and takes it back to wherever they're going. It's all up in the air at the moment. Obviously, in most places, there's still complete lockdown, but that seems to me that it's something that would make sense. In terms of sort of the more interest in wellness, there's going to be more bicycles, more walking, more routes, including perhaps where can I park and then I can continue my journey or finalize my journey of walking. Systems like Waze obviously already tell you parking spaces so they're close to wherever you're going. Then there are systems like the startup that I know called Let Me Park that allows you to actually automatically include the reservation of a car parking space together with your. To date, it's been with meetings outside of work, but now it could potentially be for actually going to work. If I'm using a car sharing, where do I drop off the car? I can reserve where I'm going to drop off on the way. If that happens to be 300 meters away, 500 meters away, it doesn't really matter if it stops me going on public transport and potentially getting infected. Again, same thing I was saying with mobility as a service platforms to allow you to include social distancing as part of as one of the parameters that are treated as important. And then last thing with regards to the national tourism, you know, and also an issue in terms of what vehicle do I buy. I've just spoken about the electrification of vehicles and the rules that are coming in place to prevent internal combustion vehicles entering cities such as Madrid, Paris, London. I think Copenhagen has rules already in place as well. So potentially that plus national tourism, more national tourism, means that perhaps car sharing companies that currently, you know, it becomes quite expensive. You use them for more than half an hour or a couple of hours or whatever it be, perhaps should add in packs that allow you to use it for a weekend away or a week away or whatever it be. Well, that's it from me. I hope this has been useful. I'll try and do this again with other questions. I've actually got one other question that somebody's already asked me that they want answering.